Good morning, everyone. In case you're wondering what I was doing, I was looking for the sticky note with all the kids' names on it. I think I stuck it in the book. It is on the piece of paper. All right. Got it. So just forget that happened. So, Elena, Casey, Stephen, Stephanie, Mary Serenity, Aurora, Nia, and Marcus, we hope, all of us, that this will be a very special day for you, a day that you will remember. I remember the day of my first Holy Communion myself, and it was a very, very special day. I hope that you know how much Jesus loves you and that you grow closer to him. Because that's the heart of what we're about as a church, about knowing God's love and spreading God's love to others. There's a very famous American pastor and author who once said this. His name is Rick Warren. He said, "A great commitment to the Great Commandment and the Great Commission makes a great church." And that's a great quote. But what does it mean? What is the Great Commandment? Who can tell me what the Great Commandment is? Anyone know? Jesus was asked, "Master, what is the greatest of all the commandments?" And he gave two answers. He said, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And you must love your neighbor as yourself." He put the two of them together, love of God and love of neighbor. That is the Great Commandment. And I think a church should have a great commitment to the Great Commandment, don't you think? And that would make a great church. But what about the Great Commission? What's the Great Commission? Well, we just heard it in the Gospel of Matthew today. It was the task, the four tasks that Jesus gave to the church: to go, to make, to baptize, and to teach. Go therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to observe all the commands I gave to you. That's why we do what we do as a church. It's why we baptize and have first communions. It's why we teach. It's why we have catechesis. But at the heart of all of this is the task of making disciples. Jesus didn't just say, go and tell people to go to church. He said, make disciples. So what is a disciple? I think we should know, because it's the very heart of the mission that Jesus gave to the early church. Right before he ascended to the Father, he gave us our marching orders for us to continue the mission that he began. And a disciple, the word in the original language means a learner or a student, someone who learns. Now, is there anyone here today who's a teacher or used to be a teacher? We had a few teachers. Oh my goodness, we get lots of teachers at this Mass. Isn't it the greatest joy to teach students who have a hunger for learning, isn't it? Students who are they can't wait to learn because they so love what it is that they're learning. And those are the best students, aren't they? Right? Now think of the opposite. Have you ever tried to teach students who have really no interest in learning? It's very difficult. And that's the difference. A disciple of Jesus is not someone who's just gathering information, memorizing answers. A disciple of Jesus is someone who's met him, who's encountered him, has experienced his love, who has made a decision to follow him, to be a follower of Jesus, and made a decision to say, for my whole life, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to seek to learn and to grow and go deeper. That's a disciple. It's not just someone who goes to church. And that's what we're called to do as a church, to make disciples. Now, today is week 2 in our preaching series, Stewardship of Treasure. And in case you're visiting today, just so you know, this is an annual preaching series we do on the topic of finances and financial giving and how we can be good stewards of all that God has given us. And last week, we looked at the question of why. Why do we give? Why do we give to the church? Or do we give to the church, or do we give as the church? And we talked about the difference between giving to pay the bills and giving to support the mission. That's what we're seeking to. We want to support the mission God has given us. And our particular version of the mission, the Great Commission, we talked about last week, it's to make joyful disciples of Jesus who form a community that overflows in faith and charity. That's our parish purpose statement. And last week we asked ourselves a very important question: are we owners or customers? When we come to church, do we come as owners or customers? And this week, and the final week of this preaching series, we're going to look at the question of how do we give? We'll look at different principles, and the first principle I want to look at with you today is that our giving should be informed. Anything that is of importance in our lives, we tend to be intentional about that thing. And when we're being intentional and we have to make decisions, we generally will seek to be informed if we really, truly care. And so it's my hope that all of us as parishioners will really seek to inform ourselves, and it's why this week we are releasing our annual Stewardship of Treasure report. It's our annual finance report. And so I hope this isn't going to be too much of a dry homily. It's like, I came to get some inspiration, instead I'm getting a finance report? Well, we have printed off, but we did have several. I think we had about 400 or 500 of these. I'm not sure how many we printed off, but these were available this weekend, but apparently we've run out. We ran out of them. So we'll have to get more and give them to you, but this is available on our website, and it will be sent out by email. This is our annual finance report. It's 12 pages, and it's got a lot of good stuff in it. You see all the colors and the photographs, and it's very nice. So it's a very good report, and it's not just about numbers. I think, well, for instance, the front cover on this booklet, some of you may remember, that was last year in the Feast of Pentecost. And what we did back then is we spoke about the call to make disciples, the call to be a parish where people encounter Jesus. And we asked the question, we said, is there anyone here in church who can say that in the last several years, Jesus has transformed my life? Because we believe that when you meet Jesus, he will change your life. And that weekend, 128 people came forward to say that Jesus had transformed their lives. It was incredible. And we prayed a blessing over the people that came forward. That's what that photograph is. Because ultimately, that's what we seek. We seek spiritual fruit. And this report speaks a lot about spiritual fruit. You'll see that in this report, there are several testimonies of people who have done Alpha. Alpha is our evangelization tool that we use to help people encounter Jesus. We also see a report about mass attendance. Now, mass attendance isn't the be-all and end-all, but it's not nothing. It's significant in the sense that our mass attendance has been slowly increasing over the last couple of years. In fact, in the last number of months, we've been between 800 and 900 people per weekend. And even a few times in the last couple of months, we've had over 900 people. And so we continue to increase. We had a wonderful Stewardship of Talent initiative this past year. You may remember that back in the fall. And just to remind you, we had 300 commitments to explore serving in ministry. And 80 of those were from people who had never served in ministry before. Other things like the sacrament of reconciliation, which is always a good sign of the spiritual fruitfulness. I remember this past Lent when we did our reconciliation day coming out, and we literally had 4 priests hearing confessions at the same time, and there were 28 people waiting. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in this parish before. So that's tremendous. At Easter, we baptized 9 adults. We've had about another 11 adults enter into full communion with the church in this past year. There's a report in here on what we're doing with families in our summer youth camp, and also a page describing some of the ministry we're doing to support the poor, to reach out to the poor at this location and also in our North Dartmouth location. So this is not just a boring finance report. There's a lot of good stuff in this, and we hope that you can take it and read it. But of course, we do have to talk a little bit about operational costs, because, as we say, this place doesn't run on Hail Marys alone. There are bills there are costs. Now, I just wondering, does anyone here have an idea, a guess? What is our operational budget in this parish? Does anyone have an idea of what that might be? Any guesses? Last night, someone said $20,000. Give you a clue. That gets us to a week. Our operational cost in this parish is about $1.1 million. That's regular operations. Good news, this past year, there's this thing in finances called red and black. You heard of that? You finish in the red, it means you spent more money than you brought in. You finish in the black, it means you brought in more than you spent. We finished this past year in the black, just by about $10,000. So that's positive news. Congratulations. Come on. Other good news, our collections this past year were up 6% compared to 2024. That's a little bit ahead of inflation, so we're making a little progress. But the more challenging news is that only 50% of our operational costs are actually covered by our Sunday collection. In most parishes, Sunday collection covers 70 to 80% of costs. So we rely on outside support. So we're not yet walking on our own 2 feet yet. We're dependent on the generosity of people outside of our parish that are helping us. So we do have a few challenges there, but there is lots of good news as well. And finally, because I'm not going to go into all the details here. Finally, the buildings. Buildings are a major part of what we do. As you know at home, buildings are very expensive, right? Cost a fortune. And sadly, we've got buildings that are quite old. This building is almost 60 years old, and over the years, sometimes the upkeep wasn't always done, and there are repairs and costs that we can't avoid. And so we distinguish between the regular cost of buildings and then the cost of the future. We have a dream of renewing our properties for the future. And so those are 2 different categories. And I just want to say that our regular operational cost was actually close to $500,000. It's that expensive to run all of our buildings. And then there's another category, preparing for our future. And we had capital expenses that are, in a sense, are not operational because they're not regular costs. They have to do with the building of our future, and those costs this past year were about $680,000. Now you might be saying, whoa, what? Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, one big item was the tearing down of the building, the old school building here. That actually cost us $450,000 to demolish because it had lead and asbestos in it. And so but it's freeing up a plot of land that's worth a considerable amount of money. So anyway, it's all in here, because I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because it's starting to get boring, right? So here's what we're going to ask. Although we've run out of these, we will send these to your inbox if we've got your email address. Mary, we can do that, right? No, we can't. So you're going to have to go on our website and download this on our website, but we'll have copies printed for next week, right? Yes. Mary's my boss, just in case you don't know. So we'll get these out to you because we hope that you will seek to be informed, because we are called to be a church that has a great commitment to the Great Commandment and to the Great Commission. And if we are faithful to that through God's grace, we will continue to move towards being a church that is the heart of Dartmouth.